the part of my job I think I always enjoyed the most about like running a company is actually like the coaching, the mentoring, the leadership development kind of side of things. It's great to be able to build one business and see it to success, but it's also incredible to be part of a bunch of other entrepreneurs' journeys, and see, how you can support them to achieve some of the things that perhaps I just took a long time to get to because I didn't have somebody necessarily to give me that input or, help me have a different perspective on things.
Today, I spoke with Asher Ismail, the co-founder of Uncapped. We talked about the democratization of capital, how Asher has been building businesses and his early life, how he supports founders, his mentorship roles, and the ins and outs of equity as well as relationships in life and business. Yeah. Hi, Asher. How you going? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So I know you're a really busy guy, so thanks for doing this. I wanted to ask, outside of work, what do you like to do with your time?
Gosh, outside of work, it's so funny when you're running a startup, it can sort of feel like it's very hard to get much time to do other things. But, one of the things I always really appreciate is just spending time with my like family and friends. I think, as an entrepreneur, often you can neglect those things because you are so focused on like building your business. But I think one of the lessons I've definitely learned is that investing that time is so important because later on, when you end up having challenges and other things going on, you have that support network to depend on. So yeah, as much as my free time, I try to get out and spend time with them.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I don't know how I could have done anything really in my life without my friends. So, I mean, you were just alluding to it before we started, like you weren't referring to another startup. You were just referring to Uncapped, or unless you're running a couple of startups.
Well, I built a few different startups over the years. So yeah, this is the third business that I've built, but definitely the biggest problem that I always had was, how do I get the funding that I need? And, I've also worked a ton with other e-commerce founders and I just saw how they struggled too. So Uncapped is, probably the ultimate business to start because it's, really about solving that problem.
Yeah. Please tell us for people who don't know about Uncapped and, what you do.
Well, we provide fast, flexible funding to e-commerce businesses for marketing, inventory, or hiring. But the key thing is that we do it without requiring a personal guarantee or any dilution. And it's my dream to work on Uncapped because, every day I get to help other entrepreneurs get to the funding that they need. Our first customers actually were my friends. So, from the start, we really tried to create a product that is actually friendly, that's, fast, that's fair, that's transparent. It's the funding solution I wish always existed. We're now in 22 countries, including the US, UK, Germany, Poland, Spain. Yeah, and our business has just been growing exponentially. So we now fund more businesses in a day than a typical VC will fund in a year. And then more personally, I also spend a big chunk of my time now doing executive coaching for other founders. So supporting them in their leadership development and growth. And I guess I've learned a lot from the different businesses that I've run and just really want to share that with more folks. And so, yeah, I'd love to work with leaders on how they can achieve high performance without compromising their well-being.
Yeah, that must actually go quite hand in hand. I don't know what the parabola is, but have you felt stressed like that when you bury yourself in a project like this? I mean, it's like nothing I've ever seen. Uncapped.
Well,
is so
absolutely.
big,
It's totally a roller coaster, I think, of building a business, as they say. And, depending on what your personality style is, I think for so many entrepreneurs, they really feel the highs, but then they also really feel the lows. And, learning how to manage that and being able to continue on and push forward and, get to the next day is super important to being able to really win in the long term.
Yeah, I'd really like to touch on that in a second, like the coaching aspect. But can you just tell us to, bring us into the fold a bit? What are those other companies that you've worked at? Like, give us the trajectory, the story.
Yeah, well, I mean, Uncapped itself was born out of the frustrations I faced when I was launching my first business. So I did that business in 2003, which was a marketplace. And, I was young and just trying to raise 100K. And I probably had 100 meetings and I got 100 no's. So back then I was just in my very early 20s. And yeah, I was in a situation where I didn't own a home. So, taking financing from the banks who all wanted personal guarantees just wasn't possible. And then, venture capital, it wasn't ideal either because I didn't have a track record or connections or warm introduction. And so I just repeatedly missed out on growth opportunities. And then my second business was in a very different space. I was selling insurance online. So it was for new drivers, and it was a first product for them. And then I launched a second product, which was about getting insurance by the minute. So rather than having to buy a full out insurance policy, you could actually match it to actually your usage. And yeah, in that business, I guess I thought I had it all figured out on the funding side. I raised like millions in venture capital, but then I got terribly diluted. And yeah, I just started to realize that the options for me were really limited. And it was depressing to think that I could work, so hard and then own so little of my company. But, what I noticed is that it wasn't just me, growing businesses, they're just often left to choose between raising costly venture capital or burdening themselves with traditional debt. And so, yeah, I just thought there must be a better way. And I started to work on Uncapped first to bring, a more fair funding alternative to Europe and then North America and, now, the rest of the world. So we've now given over 150 million of funding to businesses who've gone on to create other, jobs and opportunities. And we've also helped the founders, own more of their businesses and save millions in dilution.
Damn, nice work. How does that feel? That's pretty cool.
It's been really amazing, I have to say. But I think it just feels also there's a lot of luck involved also in building a business. And so definitely the experiences really helped to get there. But also it was great to be in the right place at the right time. And right now e-commerce has had such a boom, and that's the main focus of who we fund. We primarily are supporting e-commerce businesses, and obviously it's been a fantastic time to be building a D2C company. And we've been able to ride on the coattails of some really other incredible founders.
That's a really nice, modest response. So you must have had a through line there, because you're saying about how you're giving out insurance by the minute and insurance to first drivers. That's kind of a similar sort of thing at Uncapped, disrupting, of course, but also in a sort of charitable way to people who aren't getting that sort of product or program in the first place. So you're kind of doing that thing. Did you carry that thought with you? Like, oh, this is something I could do in the future? Or was it kind of a surprise when you stumbled across the idea of Uncapped?
Well, each of these were kind of connected together. Every business that I've been part of, and, also the ones where I've also worked for some other people. And, in each of them, I've really been drawn to them because they had a purpose. So, my belief is that, businesses that, do good, perform well. And, that's definitely the carry through from those different types of businesses. They're trying to solve some bigger problem. And I think in particular at my last company, I faced that challenge where I was really looking for a product like ours, but it just didn't exist in Europe. And so that kind of was the inspiration to go on and actually create it.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions about Uncapped. I also love this story. What was it like in the first days, and how did it all come together? Was there somebody that you met? Was there somebody you were working with already? And what was that initial kind of well, we're just going to do it look like?
Well, actually, I have a co-founder who came from the other side of the coin. So his background was in venture capital. And so I think one of the unique things we did was, by me being an entrepreneur and having that experience and have experienced this challenge and knowing what the product we needed was, the other challenge was obviously getting the amount of capital you need to actually deploy. And, he was great in terms of having that resource and that thinking and that access to help solve that problem so we could, combine together and, find the right solution. So, I mean, that's kind of how it first started out, in the sense that, at the beginning, when you're giving away capital to folks in a new model that no one has ever done before, obviously you're taking a lot of risk. And so when you're going to take a lot of risk and potentially lose a lot of money, who do you go to? VCs.
Yeah, guys.
So we raised our first money from some amazing venture capital funds in Europe. And then after a while, we kind of proved that actually, hey, we could actually do this. And, we didn't lose everyone's money. And in fact, we were really good at figuring out who are the companies that are going to grow and pay us back. And so then we were able to then work with banks who then gave us some more money and some more money. And, we've been able to then, support a whole bunch of entrepreneurs through that route. And yeah, I don't know, it all happened so quickly. To be honest, this company is not that old. It's only been going for almost 3 years. And, just over a year ago, we had 10 people in the business. And, now we have, 100 people in the business. So, that's, I guess, the game in startups, is that things can move really quickly when you have the right solution and the right product. And the right backing.
Yeah, I actually remember when I joined Debutify, we had 16 people, and then we had about 95 people 6 months later. Like it was like I started making videos for the company, and then we got like 8 new editors. And at the beginning, it was like I'll just do the editing, and
That's really cool. That's even
yeah,
faster than us. That's really impressive.
it was pretty crazy. Yeah, you know, obviously you're going to have like some pretty hard metrics when you're giving out that money. But I also wanted to ask you, like, do you ever operate on hunches? Because I know that your website is like incredibly streamlined and easy, and like people can get the money they need quickly. But was there an early period where you were kind of, dealing with people one on one, and you're like, wow, this guy's got a great idea, let's do it? Or was it always kind of analytical?
Well, I guess, what's different in the way that we work versus a bank or a venture capital fund is, we don't ask for business plans or pitches, or we don't, meet up with you for coffee. Instead, we connect to the data sources that you use to run your company and make data-driven decisions off the back of that. So, for example, as part of our online process, you would connect your Shopify account or your Google Ads or your banking software. And, we have 100 different ways that we can connect and understand a business. And we use that approach because it removes the bias from decision making. And I think that's actually so much of what has frustrated people about venture capital is that, those decisions are often based on pattern matching, and the people who end up getting the capital are often the same people who would get the capital previously. And you end up with a really undiversified pool of founders who are actually going on to be able to build big businesses. And yeah, one of our beliefs was that actually if you streamline this model and you democratized it by actually making it available to anyone, not just people who happen to be living in, London, New York, or San Francisco, and said, anybody can apply online and just connect their data and let the data speak for itself. We believe that's actually the way forward. And so in terms of the criteria that we're looking for, we say that Uncapped is great for you if you've generated sales online for at least 6 months, you're doing at least 10K of revenue per month, and you're growing. So, pretty simple criteria to find a good business in that sense. We obviously then, deep dive and look at a whole bunch of other things in terms of, return on ad spend and growth and economics and all sorts of other metrics. But at the heart of it, those are the base things to kind of make it through. And it's overall, it's a really simple, fast process. You apply in minutes, you get a decision in 24 hours, and there's no risk to you because there's no cost to apply, there's no other hidden fees, and it's just incredibly simple.
Yeah, no, it sounds too simple, which is good. Occam's razor.
Definitely at the beginning, I think folks would always ask us like, "What's the catch?"
What's the catch?
Like, there isn't a catch. It's kind of funny because people just expect getting funding to be hard and complicated, and I think that's just what we've taught people historically, right? That you need like a lawyer and a friend who's done it before, and someone to give you this introduction, and all those things are just the way this way of generating money for growth has always been. But our world was actually like, what if we really designed it around the founder, made it super simple? Our legal agreement is like 6 pages. It's written in plain English, so you know that what you're signing. And I think all those things make such a big difference because as a founder, instead of now, doing what I did, where I had to spend like 6 months knocking on doors, begging people for money, you can in 24 hours get money in your bank account and take all that time that you would have spent on pitching and reinvest it into spending time with your customers and with your team and building your product. Things that probably as an entrepreneur are the things that you actually wanted to do. So it's exciting to help entrepreneurs in that way.
That's genius. I mean, I already knew that, but that is genius. It's really nice to hear you put it like that. Are you actually going to be staying in e-commerce, or what do you see in the future? Like, will you be looking at services as well, or just products? And because products are very linear and easy to see.
Yeah. So, e-commerce was the first category that we funded, but we've actually expanded to other categories. So we also support software as a service, SaaS businesses, and really actually anyone who's generating revenue online. What we're ultimately really looking for is businesses that have repeatable, predictable revenue. And so if you have any business that has that structure where we can, connect to a data source, understand how you're doing, and then see consistent behavior. That's a business that we'd like to fund. So yeah, we are really open to talking to other types of businesses. When you go on our website, you can fill in some basic details, and it'll kind of tell you right from there, like within 2 minutes, whether or not your business type actually qualifies. And yeah, we're funding more and more in other categories.
Awesome. Yeah, I will definitely hit you up when I hit 10K on my video production company. Because I got a bit spooked by the 10K criteria, but I guess it's not that far away.
Well, 10K for us, the reason why we have that is because 10K is the point at which the business is no longer side of desk. It's actually something that you could take a salary from. And if you've been doing it for 6 months, it probably means it's something that has gotten to a stage where you can do it repeatedly. And those are the type of businesses that we want to fund, where they have a growth opportunity, they have something that's working, and they just need more fuel for the fire without someone taking a piece of the pie.
Beautiful. It's 6% the founders pay back to you, but only if you make money, right?
Yeah. So we provide, equity and interest-free investments that start from 10K up to 5 million. And then we charge a flat 6% fee on the capital that we provide. And yeah, the business basically only repays the capital as they make revenue. So there's no set repayment date. There's no compounding interest. There's no, other hidden fees. Maybe to give you an example, like, if we were to lend you 100K to spend on marketing, we take back a fixed portion of your daily revenue, say like 5 or 10%, until we get 106K back. So you're just paying that 6% flat fee.
Yeah, very simple. Yeah. Are you worried about, there's kind of it's a beautiful model that's kind of emerging. Like you can see it in like Lemonade. It's kind of like a Web3 blockchain kind of a company. Like it's like a DAO really, kind of, where you're like really off hands, letting the data speak for you. Are you worried about, I mean, you probably are, but competitors? Because like it's quite a simple idea. Can you patent that, or are you just going to charge ahead and hope that you stay ahead of the pack?
Well, we're not really too worried about competitors in the space. To be honest, if you look at how much capital has been deployed in the last period by other forms of capital, and in fact, only 0.05% of companies will access venture capital. There's clearly a huge demand of businesses that are looking for funding.
So that's 0.05 people who've applied and then been rejected. They're the only ones that get it. Or is that just companies all over?
Yeah. So venture capital in general, right, has a 0.05% chance of getting funding from that route, which is part of what the problem is, right? Because there are so many incredible businesses that deserve capital and need to grow, but they just don't fit the venture capital model. And, it just shows what the opportunity is just absolutely huge. And in our space, we are funding those businesses we do fund businesses who have raised venture capital and want a more affordable source. But we also fund, a lot of businesses that are bootstrapped, and where for them, venture capital, they probably would be overlooked. And so there's just a huge space to be able to fund. And there are definitely going to be more people doing, the kind of things that we're doing. But hey, I think overall that's a good thing, because it just means entrepreneurs have more options. And, it keeps us on our toes to keep doing things that will be good for founders and help them get the funding that they really need.
Nice answer. Yeah, when I first heard about Uncapped, I got a bit like worried that you're propping up people who are already kind of, materially successful. If they're like an entrepreneur, you could classify them as like, they'd probably be fine in a normal job. They'd be able to make their own way. And now they've taken a risk and gone, I can actually do something better, and I can grow. I got worried like the layman, most of society is still going to get left behind, even though as we've just discussed, like VCs are not funding anybody really. I can also like read between the lines and hear what you're saying, that you are very keen on like diversity and inequality. So what are your thoughts around like, I mean, you're just a startup, so it might not be here in a year. Hopefully it is. But what do you think about the future? Do you think you'll expand to help? I guess I'm asking like philanthropically, but then again, it's kind of weird because you can't just say that you're going to give out money to people who can't prove that they're going to make it back.
So, I mean, what I can say is we, are funding that wider set of businesses, right, who wouldn't have been able to access funding previously. And often, those founders come from backgrounds where they might be overlooked, we are still funding good businesses. And I don't think anybody would want to get to a stage where they're supporting entrepreneurs who are running businesses that shouldn't be running.
Yeah,
Right? That are
that's why
doing something that's
yeah.
not creating some value for the world. And that wouldn't make sense for anyone. There's enough businesses that are doing incredible things that are just overlooked and for the wrong reasons, right? Like, I can give you lots of examples of entrepreneurs that we funded where, they couldn't get funding from other sources and it just held them back. And, being able to solve that, I think is a really big opportunity.
Yeah, no, good on you, really. That is good. It's nice to hear. Yeah, I can't imagine what you went through when you were, had this great idea and you were just like, where is this going? I'm getting rejected so much. And now you've been able to facilitate that with people. I guess that kind of leads us to.
I was just going to say that, I think there are exactly, great examples of that. I was going to give you an example of one of, a customer that we dealt with was, one was an example is like a sustainable fashion brand called Hedwin. And, Alex and Anna, two female founders who, were basically struggling initially to access capital from, venture capital, where they kind of started off. They even had finance backgrounds. And so they knew kind of what they were doing and what they were looking for, but they couldn't get, I think, people to take them as seriously and to be able to get really an affordable option that would help them get to the next level. And, when you're in the fashion space, the challenge you have is that you have to struggle between juggling cash between inventory and marketing. So, Alex and Anna, they would have to basically wait for their current season to sell so they could invest the returns in the next. And it just limited their growth. And what they ended up doing was working with us. They're one of our very early customers. They signed up for a 50K advance, at the end of the year. And then they used their funds to, increase their marketing. And they bought a little bit of inventory as well. And then with that funding, incredibly, in a quarter, they saw their revenues grow 11,000% compared to the previous year. And so it just shows you what's possible, right? When you take an entrepreneur who actually does have a great idea and a great business and has the talent, but they just couldn't access the capital. And then suddenly they can just achieve incredible things, right? And so those are the stories that we want to keep supporting and, keep finding entrepreneurs like Alex and Anna, because there's so much more that can be achieved in this world and, solved by entrepreneurs if they actually had, the access to the resources that they need. And more broadly, I think, the biggest problems in the world are going to be solved by entrepreneurs, right? Whether it's what's happening with the economy or the climate and, continuing to be able to back more of those people from diverse backgrounds is super important because it means we're more likely to get to the solutions.
Yeah, I guess I want to hear more about the coaching, because you seem like a really philanthropic person. You're now doing this amazing startup, but you're even taking time to sitting on a tech board for diversity in London. You're coaching new entrepreneurs. Like, how has that experience been for you? And what are you trying to achieve? What's your goal there?
I think the part of my job I think I always enjoyed the most about like running a company is actually like the coaching, the mentoring, the leadership development kind of side of things. And I think it's great to be able to build one business and see it to success. But it's also incredible to be part of a bunch of other entrepreneurs' journeys, and see how you can support them to achieve some of the things that perhaps I just took a long time to get to because I didn't have somebody necessarily to give me that input or help me have a different perspective on things. And so I think it's just been really fun to be able to watch other people and see them develop. And often that's about helping people gain more clarity or confidence or resilience. I think just those little things can make a huge difference to the ultimate outcomes.
Yeah, no, definitely. You do seem like the calmest leader, one of the most calm leaders I've met, even though we're very far away from each other. But it's an incredible skill, But I'm interested, like you're saying that you didn't have people to turn to for feedback and perspective. Can you tell us a bit more about your early life? And because you just seem like the most grounded and well-spoken, clairvoyant person. Where did you
Well,
get that perspective from? And,
I think I mean, I definitely did have people in my life that I turned to for support and all those things. But I think maybe, in the early days of like when I was building my first company, being an entrepreneur was almost like a dirty word. Like to my parents, that was like, maybe you should get a real job.
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
it was this idea of like, what are you doing? It didn't seem like a thing. Whereas I think now for this new generation, they've seen the success of, all these tech entrepreneurs who've gone on to become super successful and have, billion-dollar companies. And there's this whole romanticism that's attached to entrepreneurship that just maybe wasn't there before. So in
Mm.
my time, there was that, but also the information just wasn't available. Like, when you were trying to find out how to actually run a company or how it's supposed to work, it was a lot trickier, right? There wasn't podcasts about entrepreneurship. There wasn't a YouTube channel you could go to. There just wasn't as much writing or, that understanding of things. And so, I just had a lot of basic things that I needed to sort out. And it took me a few iterations. It wasn't actually until building this third company did I really feel like I had it figured out. And to be honest, I still don't have it figured out. I'm still every day learning more things about how I wish I knew I should have done it this way. And so, yeah, I just reflect on that. And I think that there's an opportunity to help other entrepreneurs kind of get to that state kind of sooner. For me as well, like, in terms of building a company, I didn't set out to go and build a unicorn.
Mm.
I was about, solving a problem for my friends. And, that's kind of been the heart of what I want to do. But the other part of it has always been about, building a company that I really want to work for. So, I want to go to work every day and it doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm solving interesting problems with people I really like. And, by able to create that dynamic, you are actually, basically finding that you have happiness every day, right? Because happiness isn't a function of what you achieve. It's a function of, how you spend your time and being able to then do something that you're enjoying continuously. It's super powerful. And as an entrepreneur, we sometimes attach so much to the success, of actually getting to the final outcome. But success like that, it's very temporary, right? It's actually, the daily activities you do that are going to bring you joy. And, there's always going to be another challenge, another problem to go and solve. So you don't have to, anchor all your emotions to, the summit. And, learning that and just gives you more perspective and to be able to solve problems with a little bit more confidence, but also to feel, what you're doing every day is really important.
Yeah, I just had all my friends over on Thursday last week to I did a screening for my latest short film. And it was probably like the most beautiful night of the whole year so far. Everybody's watching it, they're clapping, they're cheering and shaking hands and, congrats, bro. And then the next morning, I just just a tinge of kind of melancholy and, what's next and fear. And it's insatiable. There's no peak really. Like it's just putting your attention on the moment. And anything can be beautiful. Anything can bring you happiness. You can brush your teeth, do the dishes and just feel, pure elation if you give it enough attention. So
that is
yeah.
so true. And in entrepreneurship, I think what's interesting, I've known, friends who are founders who have, gone on to, build a great business and then finally get to the exit. And then the day that the exit is done, they've like sold their business, they're just incredibly depressed. So it kind of relates to similarly to your story, right? Because you can get so caught up in the expectations of that moment, but actually you realize life really hasn't changed that much. When you get to the other side of it, you still got to build a life around you that you really enjoy. And yeah, I can and even have another friend where they had sold their business, immediately started working on another startup. In the meantime, decided that they were going to start building a big house in the countryside. So they were working on the construction of this house, renovating it. They put in a big pool, absolutely beautiful. And then on the day that it was done, his partner told him that she was leaving him.
You've been neglecting
And
her.
so suddenly here he was with this guy with millions of dollars and a big
Beautiful
home,
house.
all by himself in the country. And, it just made you think, where are you focusing your time and, what's actually really important to you? And it just make sure to keep things in perspective. Company building is really important, but there's also a broader life that we have to live. And there's, other goals and other ambitions that are important to support too. So, having that rounded life is going to ultimately serve you better in the long term.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're running a remote company. Like, I mean, me and you, I feel like we're kind of similar. That we're valuing people. How much interaction do you have with people? Like, and do you think that it could be beneficial or detrimental to do either or?
Yeah, well, I think our thinking behind building a remote company was actually about having a more well-rounded life.
Yeah.
So, the idea that, you have ultimate flexibility by being remote. On one hand, we have flexibility to be able to hire people around the world. So we have team members in 18 countries, but also that the people themselves have more flexibility to, control their day and to, live their life in the way that they want to live, whether that meant, them physically moving around or just making time in their day for other things that a normal, 9 to 5 wouldn't allow, like spending time with your family or dropping your kids off at school or being able to, go to the gym in the middle of the day and take care of your well-being. We have one of our team members who surfs every afternoon, right? And then they finish their surfing lesson and then they, are back on to a Zoom call talking to the team, and they're just getting to live their life the way they really want to live it. Once they're doing that, it's impossible for them to go anywhere else because they're hooked on that idea of actually building a life, not just having a job. And so, yeah, for us, it's been fantastic, and has worked, in so many ways. It is also a challenge. You've got to put work into it as well, because certainly, interacting primarily with people over a video call can have a different interaction. It can have a different level of closeness that you build with people. So you got to think about it proactively, about making time to socialize, not making your calls just all about work,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
figuring out ways to actually build the connections across your team. And so we invest in that, and we do a lot of things that try to build the culture of the company. But overall, yeah, I think it's been a huge advantage for us. Well, it took the pandemic to stimulate it, I think, because prior to that, it was like on the fringe, right? To say you're running a remote company was like,
Who are
there were
you?
like a few examples of people doing it successfully. It was hard to find the supply of people who thought that was possible. And I think modern work, where we focus more on outcomes rather than hours, also has only been a recent trend. Like certainly for my parents and the way that they worked,
Oh yeah.
their boss's expectation would be you have to be at your desk at 9 a.m. and if you're not there, like you're going to be fired, right? So it was an evolving world, and I think a lot of things have come together, but certainly the pandemic like just forced us all to try it, and then I think a lot of people just realized that actually that's what they like. So yeah, I think it worked out. It's probably the best benefit that's come out of that unfortunate time.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's so strange. Like most of my friends, my close friends are lawyers, and that's like a very traditional field where you got the old wizards and witches in the tower who are dictating everything. Like we all agree, like we're only really doing 3-4 hours of proper work, But like it's the same sort of thing that you're describing. Like you have to be there from 9 to 6, 7, 8 p.m. at night. My friend Julius, 10 p.m. at night. He just finished up at the biggest law firm in the country here, and it was just like, are you really putting out good stuff for that huge period? Like I used to be a chef, and we would do 17-hour shifts, and it was like you would be doing stuff that whole time. It was like just making food. That's a pretty simple. Here's the deliverable. But when you do like this sort of white collar job, it's a lot more like I've kind of done the thing. Now I'm kind of checking emails, faffing. Can't I just leave? Like you're only really going to do that solid 3 hours. So I hope that more companies really bring it on board, because it's amazing.
Me too. And I think it is what the change we're going to see. I think as employers now, are asking people to get back to work, there's just so many people who are saying, you know what, I'm going to think about that. And, there might be somebody else who's looking for that. And it's to our advantage, right? We are able to recruit so many amazing people because, yeah, they don't want to go back to the way that it was, right? They're like
Yeah,
living in the
yeah,
future now, and, they're not
of
ready to go
course.
to the past. So it's exciting. And I think it'll be a really good thing for everyone, hopefully.
Yeah, 100%. Tell me about the people that you've brought on. Has there been people that you've brought on that like really, changed things? Has there been people that destroyed things? Probably not.
There's probably been both. There's probably been both. I think one of the challenges, of course, is whenever you're scaling a business that fast, when you hire 90 people in the space of 12 months, you're going to make some mistakes. That's to be given, right? And so you can't bog yourself down for that too much. But I think the more key thing is about whether you realize that quickly that someone isn't a match for your culture or isn't who you thought in terms of what they would be able to execute, and then you make a change quickly, right? So that has happened to us. But for the most part, I'd say we've had a lot of wins and had really great people who came to us and just added a bunch of skills that were missing, and put out some fires, but also became leaders themselves, and then we're able to hire more great people. And like that's like the key thing, right? If you can find people initially around you who you can really build with, and then you trust them to be able to go out and hire more great people like them, you're off to a really good path. And for us, one of my things was always until we got product market fit, we stayed under 10 people. And the reason why was because when you're sub 10 people, you can change things really quickly, right? And a big thing about startups is that they're not a technology problem, they are a people problem. And it's so much because of the relationships that exist between people, and the relationships grow exponentially with each person that you add. So at the beginning, keeping it small lets you be more agile and move quickly. But then, yeah, once you've got something that works, you want to, in this game, I think, move on it as quickly as possible so that you can, get out there probably before other folks do, but also because you probably want to spread what you're doing, to more places and to more people, and make it move and take advantage of the opportunity. And so yeah, that's what we did, and so far it's been working out for us.
So what's next for Uncapped?
What's next? Well, what's interesting is that we're going to be, going through an interesting time in the world where I think we're having a venture capital nuclear winter, I would say, where,
Okay.
VC rounds have pretty much died out for the next little while. And the reason being, of course, like the, challenging macro environment that we have, and also, the war in Russia and Ukraine. And it's just kind of, spooked a lot of people in the market, right? We've seen tech stocks fall massively, and that has a trickle down effect to the price of, every valuation of even a little company who's, building something online. This period is going to be really interesting because I think we're going to have actually more great businesses that are looking for capital, but, ones who probably would have gone to tried to get funding from venture capital previously, and now are thinking, actually, I need to expand, my set of options. And so I'm hoping we're going to get a lot of really great companies coming to us looking for growth. And it's going to be a great thing because it's going to, stimulate those folks who perhaps would have looked otherwise in, traditional equity sources. And now are probably going to instead take that challenge and turn it into an opportunity by actually getting to keep more of their business and actually do better overall, because, kind of they got forced to consider something different. So I think that's what's going to be next in this little period. It's going to be really interesting to see how companies are going to get funded and how open fund companies are going to be to exploring, new ways of doing things.
Do you think you'll change anything to accommodate that, or are you going to try and ride the wave, or do you have any secret things up your sleeve?
Well, I mean, I think if we're going to keep doing what we're doing, it'll be very similar in the sense that the actual solution that we have isn't different. I think it's that the overall environment of like what people are seeing as a need is going to shift. And one of the problems so often when you're running a company, right, is that you see these businesses that try to tell you, oh, we just need some money to like educate the market. Whenever you hear that, like that, you're probably pretty doomed. If you're gonna go and spend a bunch of your seed capital trying to educate the market, it's tough. And in our case, we had a little bit of a problem with that because we had a new thing, no one ever heard of it. It was a challenging thing to be able to explain and people to believe. But some of these events, like this, just push people towards you a bit more, right? Because actually, every venture capital fund is saying to their portfolio, hey, maybe you should go and talk to Uncapped because they don't want to be diluted either. So it's an interesting dynamic when you're able to actually partner with some of the alternatives that you'd work with. And I think things like that are going to keep helping us grow, and hopefully we're going to be able to fund thousands of more entrepreneurs in the coming year.
Yeah, good luck. You must be disrupting the VCs, but also like it's a nice symbiosis too.
It's a symbiosis because I think, equity, it's not to say that equity is a bad thing. Equity is just one tool in an entrepreneur's toolkit, and you just got to know when to use it. And equity makes sense when you're doing R&D. Like we were when we first launched Uncapped, we were doing something no one had done before in Europe, and people didn't understand how it worked, and we're taking a bunch of risk, and so it made sense to use equity for that. But then when you get to something that's predictable and repeatable, like if you are marketing and doing Facebook ads, and you know that your Facebook ads have 3x return, to go and raise VC money where you give away 20% of your company in order to fund that, it's just crazy, right?
Yeah.
But there's so many businesses that are doing that. And it's because they just don't realize, oh, wait a minute, there's an alternative product, which is much cheaper for solving that situation, right? And so once you become aware, knowledge is power. And, usually once you start using it that way, then you're hooked, and, you keep doing it and you grow your business differently. And so, I just think more entrepreneurs finding out about what we're doing is going to be a great thing. And, understanding not just, hey, if this is the right solution, but in general, just understanding more broadly, what are the options available for you to fund your company? And there's, what we're lucky is that there is actually now more options than ever before. We're kind of in this unprecedented time. So if you need more fuel for the hot fire, strike while the iron's hot.
Amen. I'm keen to see what people value in the future. Probably seeds, food, land.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Yeah. Tesla stock is pretty valuable too. But I have this niggling in the back of my head of all my savings should really be spent on like oats, just in case something happens.
Just in case. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Getting prepared, and you don't get ready to set up your bunker. You're probably pretty safe. If you're in New Zealand right now, you're probably pretty safe, and anywhere in the world, it's probably a good place to be.
Yep, it's true. It's a blessing and a curse. I know that you went to Australia, but if you ever come here, I hope that you notice the strange magic in the air. That's also strange. It's because I'm originally from Plymouth, just south of you, and New Zealand is incredibly isolated, and it's sort of in the air. It's kind of indescribable, but it's there. So
we'll have to check it out one day, maybe on my next trip.
Yeah, you definitely should. It's kind of incredible at the same time. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on that we haven't touched on?
I think we've covered a lot of great things. I think probably if I had one key message from this whole thing is that, equity is expensive, and it's just so important to know your options, because, equity is the most expensive way to fund a company's growth. It takes, a long time to raise, and means that founders can end up losing control of their companies. And so, I think our main message on Uncapped is that, founders do have more options than they did before. And we just really encourage businesses to check them out.
Well, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to this, so I hope that they go to see you. Would you like to leave anywhere to point people towards your personal private email or nice, easy?
If you have a scaling online business and you're looking for funding or executive coaching, connect with me on LinkedIn. Every week, I'm actually putting out content about fundraising, as well as lessons learned about how to scale a business from 10 to 100. And if you're interested on the exec coaching side and you're leading a rapidly growing business, maybe you want more clarity or confidence or resilience, shoot me a message. It takes like 3 minutes. And if it's a match, I would love to help. I'm really excited to hear about what you're building.
Awesome. That's just so compassionate, Asher. Yeah, I love just your whole view of the world, and wanting to help people has been really nice and refreshing. Thank you for your time. Honestly, that was really nice.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Debutify Podcast. If you want to be part of the show, just email us podcast@debutify.com or head over to debutify.com to learn more. Have a great day and good luck with everything.